Tonight on Lowdown, we check back in with the cast and crew of Not Waving, a play directed by the student here at UCM.
We'll also take part in a conversation with filmmaker Lynn Novak and check out the featured author in the UCM Author Series and sit down with a couple of talented students.
So sit down, relax, and join us for another look at UCM here on Lowdown. Hello, and welcome back to Lowdown, a show by the students of the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg. I'm Brock Masters.
And I'm Ranjanae Hill. Thanks for joining us this evening as we continue to delve into all the cool things happening here at UCM.
Speaking of, Dalton Pittenger, a student we covered earlier on in the season for directing his own main stage production, Not Waving, is back tonight to talk after its run here at UCM and his journey throughout the production.
UCM's digital media production also participated in a virtual classroom event with Lynn Novak. She shared her insight and in-depth look at the Vietnam era through her latest documentary.
I thought I knew most of what was worth knowing about the war, and suddenly I didn't.
Something was happening that was profound, that was irreversible.
What was it all about?
We just tried to believe that this was the right thing to do.
This month, students and teachers were able to Skype and ask questions to co-director of the PBS series, The Vietnam War. We talked to one of the students in charge of the event, Zach Terrell.
So the event was a public Skype session with the co-creator, the co-director of the new PBS documentary series on the Vietnam War. Students get definitely perspective. The first thing that comes to mind is perspective of how a professional works. I think the big thing is like the time commitment that goes into making any sort of project, which I feel that students really like severely underestimate how much time it's going to take. And so talking to a public figure such as who we talked to really cements the idea that good quality work takes a long time. Yeah, having professionals in, Lynn Novak in this case, you can clearly see the passion she has for the work that she has done, and just the size of the crew that it takes. I think she mentioned wasn't 100 people, but they ended up using less, like somewhere around 50. Getting people who, especially documentarians who they don't make money, you really get to feel their passion kind of bubbling to the surface and bleeding through the screen in this case, which is always really inspiring for people who also aren't getting paid, such as students who are in fact paying to make the projects that work.
This event was nationwide, and people from all over the world were able to learn about filmmaking, history, and behind the scenes from Novak herself.
I want everyone who can to go to Washington and see the wall. It's reflective black granite, and so you can go up to it and you can see yourself reflected in it, and the names of the people who died in the war are there.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really neat and informative. In the future, I would hope to have more notice, to give more notice to students, to try to get more publicity out for it. But considering the late notice, it was pretty well attended, and I think the students that were here really enjoyed it.
I mean, I thought it was cool just to see a well-known filmmaker talk about how they made their film. I like watching behind-the-scenes documentaries on films that I enjoy, just in general. What did I get out of this personally? I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've done other stuff, but that's really what I kind of enjoy. And hearing the struggles that they went through in making their film, hearing the process they went through, brought up some memories of my own film. It's been a while since I've shot it, and some of the things I went through are very consistent with what they went through as well. Like, how do you get people to tell their stories and open up to you? How do you decide what the story is? How do you decide what perspective you're looking through when you tell the story? Those sorts of things. So for me personally, I found that interesting, to hear those things that really mesh with my own experience as well. I think more events like this in the future would get students excited about making films. That's the one area where I looked around at the students that were here, and there were more than I thought would show up because of the late notice. There was more excitement, the people that stuck around afterwards talking about the Vietnam War and the topic, and I thought that was a really cool thing, and I wished I had thought to plan a discussion afterwards or something like that. But I think, in the future, if we really targeted an event like this and got it publicized well, I would hope that the students interested in documentary filmmaking would be all of them in the seats, and maybe even asking questions to Lynn about what was the process you went through and things like that. So I could see in the future doing something like this, but trying to make it a little more focused and targeted towards the students who are actually doing those types of films and that type of process.
We just tried to believe that this was the right thing to do.
I take a lot of naps in here, like a lot. I took 2 naps in here yesterday.
The University of Central Missouri has many involved students within its campus, and senior Leah Kemple is no exception. We sat down with Leah to ask her about her involvement on campus and how it changed her perspective on college.
My name is Leah Kemple. I am a senior here at UCM, and I'm also the news editor of The Meal Skinner, and I co-produce a TV show called Sidetracked. When I first got to UCM, I wasn't really involved in too much just because I was trying to focus on the transition of high school to college and stuff. And it took me about a year to really dive into what the digital media production program had and the different organizations I could get involved in, and that was really cool. I got involved with Central TV working on Sidetracked with my 2 friends, Louis Sharp and Brad McClure, and we kind of dove into it. We didn't really know what we were doing too much. I didn't know what I was doing. They might have. I didn't really know what I was doing, and we had a lot of fun doing it, and we have done 1 season now, and we're working on our 2nd season as we go. And then I also, I spend a lot of time up in the Meal Skinner office. So I'm the news editor at the Meal Skinner, and I work with contributors. So I help anyone that wants to write stuff for the paper. I help them kind of clean it up, tighten it up, figure out what they want to write about. I work closely with all of the other staff members at the Meal Skinner as well, tightening up their stuff, making sure that it's all copy edited right. If any of us need help filling holes in stories and stuff, we all kind of help each other out and do stuff like that. I also write my own stories. Each week I try to do 1 or 2 stories a week, depending on like whatever's going on. I do news, so right now I'm working on a story about the Toys for Tots drive that's going to be going on pretty soon over the holiday season. I also write the police beat, so I go down to the police station every week, and I get to see all the criminals and see their headshots, their mugshots, and that's pretty fun. When I first came to UCM, my original game plan was, I'm gonna come into class, I'm gonna get all my classes done, and I'm gonna get out of here as fast as I can, because I didn't want to be involved in stuff. I just wanted to start working, and I just wanted to be an adult. And then I realized into my 2nd semester that that wasn't really a very good game plan, and that the best way for me to succeed and to soak up as much information and knowledge as I could while I was here would be to get involved in different things. So the Meal Skinner, Central TV, I did a little bit of work with PBL, which is Phi Beta Lambda. It's the collegiate version of FBLA. And those different organizations that I've worked with and have been involved in have really, not only have they given me the confidence to go out into the workforce next year whenever I plan on graduating, not only do I feel confident to go out into the workforce and be a successful employee wherever I go, but I also have these skill sets that I didn't think I could develop, that I still don't think I can develop only taking classes here. I've been able to learn so much and soak up so much information and knowledge in these different organizations that I've been involved in, and I'm like so grateful to UCM for that. And I know that if I were to email any of the people in our department right now and say, hey, I need a recommendation letter, or hey, I need kind of a connection for this specific job that I want to work on, I know that Dr. Moore, Birdmeyer, Dr. Newsom, any of those people would be so willing to say, hey, Leah, I'm going to help you, because not only is it their job, but they also are so dedicated to helping students. That connection that I have with those professors makes me feel comfortable and makes me feel confident in the work that I do and the work that I will do in the future.
Reporting for Lowdown, I'm Jacob Clark.
Earlier on in the semester, I sat down with Dalton Pittenger, the student director of the UCM production of Not Waving, and discussed him traveling the show. This past weekend, the show performed at home in the Black Box Theater on campus. Pittenger explains what the break in rehearsal meant for the show.
There were some new connections emotionally. In one scene in particular, the protagonist, her name is Crandall, she sort of comes to this revelation when she realizes that her mom is going through all sorts of stuff that she didn't realize. And the intensity of that scene really increased after the break for whatever reason, and it was excellent. The truth really was there, and I hadn't noticed, anything wrong with it before, but it was 10 times better when we came back, and so that was really cool to see. The whole time you're off, you're thinking about it. You can't ever totally get it out of your mind, especially when you're planning the rest of your semester. So you're thinking about your character and how they felt and how this moment went, and even then when you're trying to recall what you did previously, you're definitely going to interject some of those new discoveries in, whether you're trying to or not. I'm not sure that the cast made a conscious effort to change the show after they came back, but it certainly happened that way, and so that was really cool to sort of see from an educational standpoint.
Everything was not so smooth, though. Pittenger describes one of the challenges the cast faced just days before the show.
We had an actress who was unfortunately, against her will. It was a situation totally out of our control, out of her control. She'd been on the road with us. She wasn't able to perform with us back here. And we didn't get final confirmation that she wouldn't be back until Tuesday with us opening the show on Thursday. So we had our final dress, and then it was time to open. So as soon as we got word of that, we contacted who we thought could come in and fill in that role. Of course, the actress had a script, and it was great. We couldn't have had any better result because she was incredible. She really responded to the text. Watching it, you couldn't really tell that she had a book. She was just so engaged. And that's just a testament to how talented she is as an actress. Every show has some problems that arise, and you see them get handled, and you're like, oh, it's not a big deal. But to know that at the end of the day, you have to make that call, that is a totally different beast.
Pittenger understands that this was a very unique opportunity. He tells us what his biggest takeaways are now that it is all over.
The show must go on, and I think I talked a little bit about that before, but that, as we saw, it really exemplified itself as we went on, and we had different things that we had to solve and changes that we had to make, because we knew the show had to go on. As campy and as goofy as that sounds, that's the way it was, and that's what I knew in the back of my mind when I was making those decisions, that we just had to make it happen. No matter what life threw at us, we had to put that show together because there were people counting on us. And the other biggest takeaway that I have is never to take anything for granted, and to enjoy every moment, because this was a really crazy process. At times, I was confused, I was overwhelmed, but I wouldn't trade any of it for the world in hindsight. It was the last show of my UCM career, and I can't imagine a better way to have gone out. It was a wonderful experience, full of a lot of wonderful people, and I never want to forget that, and I never want to take that for granted, because it really was an awesome experience that I'll probably never get to experience again in quite the same way.
This has been Brock Masters reporting for Lowdown.
This is an example of winning.
Oh, there's a giant hair on me. Oh my god. Ooh. I hope that's Jess's, because I don't know where else it came from.
An estimated 75% of college students change their major while obtaining a degree. Graphic design student Jacob Watson is a part of that percentage. We asked Jacob why he decided to change majors and what college is like now that he is in a new degree program.
My name's Jacob Watson. I'm an independent graphic designer and illustrator, and I'm a student, full-time. So when I first came to UCM, I was majoring in computer science, and I had already had a background in computer science. I'd been doing it for 3 years or 4 years or so. And then when I came here, I started a bachelor's program with it. I went about it for 1 full semester here, but I was in higher up classes because of my previous background in it. And it was just the worst thing. Not the major program, but for me, it was awful. In the computer science department, every professor was awesome at what they did, and they all tried to help me, but they were so good at it, and I was just so far behind that I couldn't do anything about it. And so I think if the professors had been, at the same level as I was used to before I came here, then I wouldn't have known that I didn't want to do it. When I changed, I had just had a final, and my final was in discrete mathematics, and I remember taking it and literally not knowing the answer to one question at all. And I stared at the paper, and it got to the point that I just handed it in with like 2 things answered. And I got to my car, and I had like a nervous breakdown because I At that point, I was a junior. I was going into my senior year, and that was my gateway class to open up the last classes I need, and I failed it. And so I would have had to have taken another semester of the same classes. I hated the classes and what I had to do in them, and so I decided that instead of doing that, I would change. Somebody suggested that I was pretty good at art, so I should change to that. And I thought, there's no money in that. I shouldn't do that. That's stupid. That would be ignorant, because I had a job pretty much set up in programming, and it would have made a lot of money. And it was in Kansas City. It was a job in an actual huge business. I decided to give that up, and I called the art department and scheduled a meeting with the advisor, and we laughed about my grades. That was fun. She kind of poked fun at the fact that I pretty much failed every class, but they made it really easy to switch. All I had to do was go to the office and say, I want to change my major, and go talk to one advisor, sign a paper, go talk to another one, sign another paper, and boom, I'm in the process of getting 3 different degrees instead of 1. I feel so much more engaged and just generally happy. Like, I'm happy with the work I do, and I'm proud to show it off. So sustainability is not completely financial. Sustainability is pretty much just you. It doesn't matter what you think other people will pay you for. If you're good at something, people will pay you to do it. But sustainability is more your mindset, I think. Because if you have a toxic environment that you hate, then obviously you're not going to want to be there. But if you don't have a toxic environment and you love what you do, then it doesn't matter. You'll want to be there anyway. Change your major. If you want to change it, do it. Don't worry about how long you've been in school, don't worry about anything, just change it. Because if you have doubts about what you're in, then you're going to keep doubting it, and you're going to doubt it after you graduate, and you're going to doubt it until you retire, and you're going to keep doubting it. So do it, just do it. Don't question anything about it. If you want to do it, other people's opinions don't matter. They're not paying money to take the classes.
Reporting for Lowdown, I'm Jacob Clark.
As a part of the One Campus, One Book Talk here at UCM, this month's award-winning author was Alexander Weinstein.
I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and then moved to Westchester County, went to school upstate New York for the first 2 years of my undergrad. And then I moved to Portland, Oregon. I dropped out, became a chef in Portland, Oregon, and lived there for a number of years until I went back to school at the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics at Naropa University, which was a Buddhist university. And I studied a whole bunch of performance art there, creative writing, dance, theater, graduated from there, and then lived in Boulder for a number of more years, went to my MFA program at Indiana University, and then now, after graduating, live in Ann Arbor, where I teach creative writing.
Alexander Weinstein is the director of the Martha Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing and the author of the book Children of the New World.
Yeah, it's a world that's very close. So Children of the New World is a collection of stories very close to the reality where we are now, but just maybe 10 years in the future where technology has taken over a little more. So you have parents bearing their robotic children, you have people living completely online lives, and their avatars get pregnant, and then they have online kids that they have to take care of. There are second ice ages that sweep through communities, and in this way it's both humor-filled dystopia that deals with where we might find ourselves if we're not careful with how much we love our technology. Yeah, a lot of it came from both, my bumbling uses of technology, because I often either use it poorly or make a fool of myself online, and then I find out, oh, that would make a really interesting story. The first story, Saying Goodbye to Yang, was my laptop crashing, and that became the older brother, robotic Yang, who crashes. And then my own life, my romantic relationships end up playing out in a lot of the stories. My fatherhood shows up because there's fathers and parents that are trying to take care of these kids, whether they be virtual kids or whether they be robotic children. That's still part of this sort of parenthood. that plays into that. And then, as I said in there, my anger often with social and political situations, right? Looking at how we treat our Earth, for example, or looking at political decisions. These will then play out in dystopian ways where the BP oil spill, for example, becomes an ongoing oil spill in one of my stories that goes on for hundreds of days and destroys the water. So I look at current events and they play out. So I'm working on a number of different stories right now. Some are adult fairy tales, also sort of wonky worlds where I have working class trolls that are trying to take care of their children with the onset of the bad humans that are chasing them into caves. I have utopian stories, I would call them, which is really more about a kind of spiritual speculative fiction. What would happen if all of us suddenly were able to become more psychic, or what if we felt each other's emotions more readily? And that I see as a more kind of positive spin on where the future could go, as opposed to the dystopian visions that I wrote in Children of the New World.
We hope to see many more great authors like Weinstein here at UCM in the future. And you can check out more about Weinstein at his website, alexanderweinsteinfiction.com.
Said, hey babe, what's up? What you doing later on? We could go on down to the local bar and sing a couple bad karaoke songs. Or down by the river, there's a party going all night. Or we could lay down on a blanket underneath the stars, me and you and a cooler of cold Bud Light. And I said, oh, that sounds good, as long as I'm with you. Just give me some direction, and I'll do whatever you want me to. It don't matter to me, I'll do what you say. So come on, baby, lead the way. A year down the road, I took a chance, and for the rest of our lives, I wanna be your one and only man. Asking me so many questions about our wedding plans. I just looked her in the eye and I took her by the hand. And I said, oh, that sounds good, as long as I'm with you. Just give me some direction and I'll do whatever you want me to. It don't matter to me, I'll do what you say. So come on, baby, lead the way. Yeah, just lead the way. Now all that sounds good, as long as I'm with you. Well, just give me some direction, and I'll do whatever you want me to. It don't matter to me, I'll do what you say. So come on, baby, lead the way. So yeah, just lead the way. Yeah, just lead the way. Whoa.
Hey there, kids. Look who it is. Our not-so-favorite knucklehead, Tim. It's been a while, Tim. Tim is taking notes, which seems fine, but he's only writing in one color. Oh, silly Tim. To maximize Tim's note-taking effectiveness, he should use different colored pens. This will help him recall and remember important information for his tests and other class activities. No more failed tests for you, Tim. Tune in next time to see what Tim will do wrong next.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left tonight, but do not fear, the show in its entirety and individual segments can be found on our KMLS TV YouTube page.
Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Brock Masters.
And I'm Ronjanae Hill. Good night.
Cast and crew of Not Waving, a play directed by the... Oh my goodness.
My eyes are watering.
All right.
A conversation with filmmaker Lynn Novak. Sorry.
Yep.
And check out one more time. I just gotta get that.
A student we covered earlier on in the semester. That's not right.
Also participate in a virtual classroom event with Lynn Novak.
Okay. I think Speaking of,